Evening, everyone. Welcome to the August executive meeting. Thank you very much to our visitors, some faces I recognise. We've got a reasonably tidy agenda, but we have some chunky bits, so let's proceed without further ado. Apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Leanne McIntyre has sent apologies.
Thank you. Are we okay with the minutes of the previous meeting? Agreed. Thank you. Okay. Declarations of interest from anybody, please. Okay, I've got one. I don't know if, Councillor Ashby, you were at this meeting as well with the proposed developer for item, where is it now? Item 9?
Yes.
Right, so I think Councillor Ashby and I were at a meeting probably end of 2023, maybe, Mr. Breeden, with perhaps Mr. Chinner was there as well, just introducing the conceptual proposal for the station development and the issues arising, of which one was parking that was highlighted at the time. So, but I come into today's meeting with an open mind. Councillor Rice.
Yeah, I guess it's just a repeat of the declaration with regards to item of the response of the call-in one I met with residents of Woodend Road and Blackdown Road and other parts of Deep Cut in prior to the original decision made by the executive.
Thank you. Any others? No? Okay. Good. Public question time. I think we had 3 public questions. Is it Councillor Allaway is going to introduce your questions? Welcome back. You'll get a season ticket soon. Yeah, I think you know the drill if you want to ask your question. But you can do it from the mic if you don't want. Otherwise, the people online can't hear you and the streaming and stuff. Thank you, Councillor Allaway.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Just to say, I think the answers given to 1 and 2 are fine, because I expect it to be the executive as a whole to debate and then come to a conclusion. Question 3, if you could respond formally to the application for the highways work. I mean, I understand through verbally what you were saying, that the council doesn't see fit to contribute to highways work unless it was deemed a priority. Is that still the case?
So just, thank you. Just, I'll hand over to Councillor Ashby in a minute, just for the benefit of the public. So Councillor Alloway asked if 3 public questions. They've been published, I think, on the council's website. Is that correct? Including our answers as well. So just for everybody's benefit, we've skipped over that stage. I don't think on balance you've missed anything that exciting, but you're welcome to go and look at it. Sorry, Councillor Alloway, I just thought for the benefit of the public. Councillor Ashby, do you want to try and answer, which I think is the overarching supplementary you're asking there, effectively, isn't it? Councillor Alloway, yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you for the question. As we've discussed a number of times, both offline, in meetings and at the Performance and Finance Committee meeting last month, this authority is not the Highways Authority. So we would not consider contributing to a highways project that has not been deemed a priority by the Highways Authority. And therefore, the initial request for us to consider funds is inappropriate, and we won't be doing so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Alloway, for your questions, and obviously we'll move on to the discussion of the item later. In fact, quite shortly after we get over questions by members. So we'll move over to questions by members, item 5 on the agenda. Councillor Dr. Kang, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question totally unrelated to what we were discussing today. But this is a question to the leader regarding the new guidance developed by the National Police Chiefs Council and the College of Policing in consultation with the Home Office on the disclosure of suspects' ethnicity and nationality. Now, this interim guidance will form part of a refreshed media relations authorised professional practice due to be published in late autumn. Now, this appears to be a knee-jerk reaction coming after Headline Hunting Reform UK accusing the police of cover-ups over 2 men who have been charged in connection with the alleged rape of a child in Nuneaton. Under existing guidance, there is no legal barrier to the police releasing information about a suspect's nationality, ethnicity, or immigration status once they have been charged. However, there has been a requirement to disclose such details, leaving the decision at the discretion of each force. Until very recently, officials and criminal justice practitioners had mostly resisted disclosure after arrest. Now, there are major concerns of early disclosure raising several legal and ethical issues, and I'll come to the question, obviously, quickly. So the concerns are mainly routine publication of these details would invite the public to see suspects as examples of a group rather than as individuals in a case. And yet a ready summary referencing official figures, and this is unfortunately from 2022 because the latest figures are not divided into an ethnicity. Defendants prosecuted for child sexual abuse in England and Wales were 88% white, 7% South Asian, 3% black, 2% mixed, 1% other. While not specific to rape, it is indicative that white individuals remain the majority of defendants, broadly proportionate to or slightly above the population share. So this would also lead into prejudice in trials, consistency problems, and it's also against human rights, Article 6 and Article 14 of the European Convention of Human Rights. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, welcomed the guidance as a step towards greater transparency. So would the lead agree that the demand for default disclosure of ethnicity or immigration status is not about transparency, but about advancing a political narrative? If the police disclose the information and those details fit the stereotype, this is used to indict the wider group. If the details do not fit, attention moves elsewhere. So the real question, however, is not whether the public should be trusted with the information, it is whether the current government should normalise ethnicity and immigration status as the organising facts of crime reporting and burden already marginalised communities with more suspicion. I request the leader to write to the Home Secretary, the Right Honourable Yvette Cooper, to raise these concerns and ask for a rethink on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dr. Kang. First of all, I think we'll restart the clock on questions, to be fair to other members, given the richness of Councillor Kang's contribution there. I think it is a complex area, and I think you've outlined some of the issues very clearly. Thank you. I think in answering, I think we'd all want to see people treated fairly and consistently, without fear or favour in the eyes of the law and in front of their peers as well. So what I'd like to propose is I take away your question and I digest it, and it might need a little bit of support from the officers to look into some of the details of that. But I have a lot of sympathy with the point you're making. I would be interested to the non-verbal communication from other members as to whether they broadly supported Councillor Dr. Kang's comments there. Whilst it's well within my remit to write a letter, I'd like to see it, whether it's a more broad appeal from members. You can show your support by nodding or shaking your head as you wish, people. Okay, some people are not doing anything. Okay, that's fine, that's your right. I think it's appropriate. I think it's a very rich question, so I think that's...
It's to be very quick. Can we have that question written in an email so I can actually take it in, because it was a lot, and it'd be easier than going onto YouTube probably.
Thank you. So here's what we do. Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Good idea.
I'm happy to email it to members.
If you could send it to members, Councillor Dr. Kang, I will reflect on that with the officers as well. If members wish to write to me over the next few days with their thoughts in support, otherwise I'll look for a broad consensus of it. But I am minded to support the request to ask for a letter so that we get consistency. We do have issues of racism in this country. We know that populations are prejudiced against, and everything we can do to prevent that prejudice, especially in legal processes, is to be supported. Thank you. Anyone got a better one than that? Councillor Cope, please.
I'm not sure it's a better one, but I can promise a shorter one. The council last week announced its intention to market for sale some communal green space on Greenbank Way in Frimley. Can I ask whether any consultation took place with local residents in advance of the decision to make that to market that piece of land for sale?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Cope. I just want to correct you there, it's not green space, it's not allocated green space at all, but residents were informed by way of letter that the marketing was going to commence down there. And I know my colleagues and the representatives for Frimley have also been down and spoken to residents this week.
Thank you, Councillor Cope, for your question. Any more? Oh, I think Councillor Rowlands, you just beat Councillor Claret there. On you go.
Thank you, Chair. The figures on our affordable housing completion targets have been picked out as being lower, really very much lower, over the current period. I think achieving a 16.72 completion rate. This is extremely worrying, and the targets are simply not being met. One of the puzzling thing is on the 31st of March, the Borough MP raised a question about authorities not meeting housing deadlines. This rather seemed an opaque statement in bearing in mind the Council's failure to achieve at the moment. What steps is council taking to improve on this low 16.72 rate of completion of affordable housing in the borough?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Rowlands. I am aware it is a question you have asked a number of times before, so I will give you the same answer as we've had before. Affordable housing, what are we doing about it? You will know in our emerging local plan, our target going in is 40% affordable housing. And that is the target we start with, and then we get into viability discussions, which then changes that. One of the areas in recent times, which was a decision taken by this council in a previous form, was a particularly low affordable housing on the Mindenhurst development, which is one of our larger developments. So for future reference, we will be pushing for 40%. Again, if we can change the way viability is measured, we have a better option on there, but we start at 40% as a request going in when we have the discussions with developers. We've not been particularly successful in recent years, one of the reasons being one of our largest developments being Mindenhurst.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. Councillor Barrett?
Thank you, Chair. I wondered, what are the implications of today's court ruling in Epping for Surrey Heath?
So we don't know, I think, is the answer. What we do know is we have an extremely hospitable population here in our borough who have looked after those people that have been displaced from their homes while their claims are processed. And we are lucky that we have not seen the same kind of issues that other places have seen. In terms of the implications of this court ruling today, I think it's inevitable that the government will appeal, and therefore we need to probably just sit and wait and see what the outcome of that appeal is, and then what the government decides to do after the result of that appeal, which obviously can go one of two ways, in their favour or in Epping Council's favour. But either way, it has implications. Well, it has, if it goes against them, it has implications for policy, and clearly they have the channels to change the law should they wish to. So at the moment, we shall sit on our hands. We shall respect the fact that our community is respectful towards our guests, and the guests are respectful towards our community, and we will rejoice in that for now. Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor White, sorry, I didn't spot you there, but I have been alerted to your presence. Please.
Okay, thank you. Last week, the Windle Valley Day Centre was closed due to an accidental removal of a safety bar at one of the exits coming out of the day centre. It reopened this week at a reduced reduced capacity. We know it's important to clients there that they have a continuity and familiarity on a daily basis, and being moved to other centres is a bit upsetting for some of them. Can you give me an idea when the centre will be open at full capacity again, please?
I think Mr. Stevens is going to take this one. Thank you, Councillor White.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor White. Unfortunately, I can't give you an indication at present because I've not been alerted to when the repairs will be undertaken to the barriers to ensure that we can safely allow our service users to enter and exit the facility. I like your choice of words in terms of unintentional removal of the barrier, of the handrail. Our corporate health and safety advisor went down and assessed, and ultimately it meant that we couldn't ensure the safety of any service users if they were in the building and we had to evacuate at any point. That's the reason why we had a reduced capacity. We've undertaken remedial works to allow the centre to reopen, but as you say, that is at a lower capacity than it ordinarily would be. But I know that our colleagues in community services at Runnymede are working as quickly as they possibly can, in conjunction with our property team, to make sure that it is at full capacity as soon as humanly possible. You are right, we did offer alternative provision at other centres, and obviously we would transit service users to those centres as well. So we weren't without provision at any point in time, we were just relocating to different centres. So we were happy with the continuity, and I think that's one of the benefits of the shared arrangement that we have with Runnymede. What I will do, Councillor White, is go away and come back to Executive and yourself with a response.
Thank you.
I feel there's a select audience that are in the know here. So did a car take out a handrail? Is that what's happened, roughly speaking?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Glad I managed to decode that. Thank you, Councillor White, for that question. And it's maybe a good opportunity just to celebrate the success of that centre, because I think we're operating at full capacity, obviously with just a few changes at holiday time, but in principle at full capacity, which is a big turnaround. So congratulations to the team involved. I'm sure they want to get back to normal as quickly as possible. I would offer my concreting services because I was at it at the weekend, but it wasn't very good. So you wouldn't want me doing your barrier repairs. If there aren't any other questions from members? No? Okay, very good. We'll move on then to item 6, which is the allocation of SIL funding, which I think is with you, Councillor Ashbury.
Yeah, thank you. I am especially pleased that this application has finally made it to be considered this evening. The debate around SIL and the apparent misunderstanding of what was agreed by the executive of the previous administration at its meeting on the 14th of March 2023 was finally cleared up at the P&F committee on the 9th of July, following the call-in of the exec decision of March this year. So we are now able to finally review this paper. As is usual, when grants from SIL are made to organisations outside of Surrey Heath Borough Council, we would expect to see proof of funding that is being used for the project from elsewhere before releasing the grant. When I first reviewed this paper, the proposed total cost for the refurbishment project was estimated at £360,000 and could be fully covered by the West End Parish Council SIL reserve and this grant. In the past few weeks, however, I have been made aware that the likely latest estimate of this project is nearer £450,000, which would mean that the project could not be carried out with the monies available. It is not the responsibility of Surrey Heath Borough Council to take on an open-ended liability through the allocation of these grants, and therefore it is my opinion that the cost of this project needs to be brought back in line with the original estimate, or that funding streams from elsewhere are investigated by West End Parish Council. I would therefore suggest that the resolution be amended to read as is, with the addition of the words, should West End Parish Council find that the project cannot be fully funded by the use of their SIL reserve and this grant, the project should be value engineered to bring it in line with initial estimates or alternative sources of funding for the shortfall should be sought. Is that clear what I'm saying to members of the executive? Okay, I will take any questions anyone has on this topic.
Councillor Garrett, please.
Is that me? Thank you. We discussed SIL funding leaders meeting this morning, and I just want to clarify a point. So obviously there is the cost of the building has gone up, which I'm sure we see across the board on things when there's obviously been delays. So based on your recommendation to amend, is there any mileage in West End Parish coming back with another request for more SIL funding? is my question, because there is still funding there. And as we all know, if we do not use up that SIL funding by the time we enter into the LGR, that money will go into the whole LGR, and I know how much you love discussing the LGR, but this is one where I agree that we need to get it done as soon as possible, because I'm sure we don't want it going into whatever that unitary looks like, and that money being then spent in another area like Spelthorne, etc.
I will attempt to answer the question. There's a lot of ifs, buts, maybes, and so on in there. We are, as you know, looking at where the best use of SIL across the borough is from the central pot, which is reducing rather rapidly based upon projects that have been approved. I was particularly keen on this project being brought forward as a priority because of the amount of time that we've been discussing with West End. Any further bids would have to go into the process which we are about to investigate and be considered on its merits against the other projects that are coming forward across the whole of the borough. So is there merit in it? Yes, of course there's merit. Can I guarantee that any further funds would be apportioned beyond this 85,000 to West End? The answer is no, because that would be a discussion at this committee and a prioritisation of where the money is spent of the remaining SIL that we have. So that's kind of rather opaque, but it's probably as clear as I can be in answer to your question.
Any other questions and points from people? Councillor Kang.
Thank you, Chair. I do see your point, Councillor Ashbury. However, as you know, at that time the project started and the quotation was given. That was the price. The prices have gone up, like Councillor Garrett has said. Now, for the pavilion, which is in concern, the work needed is to upgrade heating, lighting, toilet, changing room, etc. So that is, again, partly the West End Council, Parish Council are providing the money. We're only asking for an extra to complete that project, not just cut corners and do another quote for you and come back with another, back to stage one and then go, therefore. So I do agree with the Parish Council that we expect that the members to approve this request in addition contribution towards the improvement. Bear in mind, it's the improvement of the pavilion we're asking for, nothing else. So this work is necessary to ensure that high demand by the wide range of users in West End and around. West End needs that project to be completed soon as possible so that it can be used by all ages, all nationalities, and everybody who uses it. And I'm sure Parish Council will agree with me. So I urge you to agree to this. However, we are funding the Parish Council are funding majority of it, and they're only asking to complete this project with their extra sale money. Thank you.
I didn't recognise a question in your statement, but I will attempt to answer what I think you were asking, if that's okay. And if I get it wrong, please let me know.
Sorry, there wasn't a question. It was what I'm requesting on behalf of the Parish Council.
Okay,
and
so
West End.
you don't need me to respond, or do you would like me to respond? Okay. So the recommendation of this paper is to provide significant funding towards the refurbishment of the pavilion in West End. That is the recommendation of this. What I am saying in my amendment to that recommendation is this Borough Council will not take on an open-ended, unknown amount of money to fund this project. That has to be the responsibility of West End Parish Council, which does have the ability to raise funds elsewhere. So I am proposing this grant is made, and if it cannot be value engineered down to the level that this grant and the current reserve fund, that West End Parish Council consider alternate funding to fund it. One of that may be, as I just explained to Councillor Garrett, that they could make a further bid. What I can't guarantee is that that bid would be successful, because there are a number of bids coming in since the change of the way we administer the main SIL fund, a request for that, and it would have to be prioritised by the executive. So that's my answer to it. We will provide significant funding towards it, is my recommendation to my colleagues, but not take on an open-ended potential funding stream, because we need funding for other projects across the borough.
Thank you.
Councillor Noble, please.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Ashby, for that explanation. This facility is desperately needed in our ward in West End and Bisley. It provides a central community hub to villagers and a number of community groups. You mentioned, Councillor Ashby mentioned that there are a number of other projects that are already in application for, and I just wondered if he could enlighten us as to the quantum of those projects, so that the council has, the parish council has visibility of what the likelihoods would be if they were required or needed to come back to Surrey Heath for additional funding if they can't find funding elsewhere for this essential community project. Thank you.
I'll answer your question in terms of the number of projects that are not worked up yet, but are directionally have been submitted into the Green Space team, into the Built Environment team, etc., far outweigh the actual quantum of funding left in our SIL reserve. There will have to be prioritisation on that if these projects are to be done. I do not expect all of the projects that are starting to be requested will be able to be funded. I don't know which ones will, which ones won't at the moment, but if we had a SIL fund that was significantly greater than the one we have now, I still don't believe we could do everything that we're being requested.
Thank you, Councillor Noble. It's fair to say that, like Councillor Garrett said, the rules of the game have shifted around a little bit on us because of LGR, local government reorganisation. And it's important, I think, for the members of the general public to be aware that this is a separate pot of money from what we normally talk about. So we're normally talking about, woe is us, we haven't got any money, and I'm the first to say that, and how we need to navigate our way through to the unitary process due to the historic property acquisitions and the debt that goes with them. But this is a completely ring-fenced set of money that if we don't use it within the borough will get sucked up and has the potential to be used in other places. So it is important that we do focus on trying to spend that money effectively and efficiently, and that's not on vanity projects, that's on things that will make a difference to the residents of Surrey Heath. And Councillor Ashby's being very polite, because I'm probably the one going out most strongly to everybody saying, bring us your projects. Everybody I meet, I'm saying, bring us your projects, because if we can know about these projects, we can then prioritise them. Now, West End Parish Council is in a good position here because it has a very attractive project, and I think, Councillor Ashby, you were right to mention the fact that it's a very valued project, and Councillor Kang and Councillor Noble, a very valuable project to the community. We can see that from the write-up and the long list of community uses. So it's a very attractive project for us, and therefore it's come forward here. That doesn't mean to say there won't be other attractive projects as well that come forward, and we need to give those a fair chance. As we stand, I think, with the recommendation for the officers, it's 20% of the total project that is being proposed to be supported. That would have been a bigger percentage when it was a lower total sum, but as Councillor Ashbury says, we can't be the banker of last resort to West End Parish Council. They need to live within the means for this project as well. Other questions from people, because I do have a couple of my own. Please, Councillor Rise.
Thank you. And it's just a question kind of on precedence. It's very, in my understanding, it's very rare that SIL grants to external organisations outside of Surrey Heath Borough Council would be very rare to receive a total amount of, like, the total amount of money for a project or a kind of an open-ended project, kind of as Councillor Ashby set out within his amendment to the recommendation. So I just wanted to check that it would be very rare, almost unheard of, for Surrey Heath Borough Council to provide SIL in the manner of to cover a gap to an organisation that's not Surrey Heath Borough Council.
You're absolutely correct, which is why I made the caveat in my opening words that where we are being asked to part fund for an external organisation, because we would not fully fund a project, but where we always require proof that other funds are available. West End Parish Council have provided us with the proof that they have their SIL reserve, and we are proposing that we fund 20% of the project, as Councillor MacDonald has said, but my view is that cannot be an open-ended cheque that says we will cover any increase in costs or any extra work that West End Parish Council wish to do. That is the responsibility of West End Parish Council, not of Surrey Heath Borough Council, in my opinion.
Councillor Kang, please.
Bad habit. Yes, we do accept that. However, the Western Parish Council are looking elsewhere to fund extra if they need to. However, this is the project they want to complete before LGR, the unitary, whatever's going to happen. So, and it stays in hand. Otherwise, Woking's going to get it because Woking needs it more. And believe me, half of the West End is Woking, and half of it is Surrey. So, Surrey Heath. So please think again and help us. I'm asking for a bank of mum and dad here.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, you will understand that we cannot take on an open-ended liability for a project from an external organisation. We are recommending, or I am recommending with this paper, that we make a significant grant towards the improvements of the pavilion in West End, because we recognise it is a valuable asset to the community. But under no circumstances for an external organisation would Surrey Heath Borough Council take on an open-ended liability for a project. We will make set grants towards the cost of those projects, and that is what we are proposing to do today with a significant amount of money.
Thank you, Councillor Ashbury. Councillor Kang, I noticed that you're drifting into old habits where you press the button first and then put your hand up, but I think we can excuse you of that. I just want to come in, I think I saw some hands there, but I just want to come in with a couple of questions of my own, break things up a bit. So, and I know this is important to a number of people's hearts. As part of the refurbishment, will there be completely inclusive facilities provided for all users to enable them access to sport for all? Because if I don't get that commitment in writing, if we can't get that commitment in writing subsequently, I don't think we should be making this grant.
I have not seen, despite correspondence with West End Parish Council, I have yet to see that commitment in writing. I can, I guess my question is, should we then add to the resolution another string to it that says that we would only make this £85,000 available once we have confirmation that that is to be the case. Sorry, it's an amendment on an amendment now. That's what's confusing me.
And I'm sure that's in the mind of the parish council. I don't think, and it's not, we shouldn't ordinarily see it, but it is effectively money going from the borough to the parish council. So it's appropriate that we at least ask the question that there will be inclusive facilities for all so they can access sport and use these facilities. So yes, I would support that amendment on an amendment. Thank you. There was sorry. Try again, shall I? Councillor Tom Perrott, thank you.
I just feel that putting on my hat as a parish councillor of West End's neighbour, Bisley, I think that not eventually, but I'm sure that with this funding and helping them to develop improve the facility, they would bring in interest from outside clubs to help, which is what's happening in Bisley. We did some refurbishment of the pavilion there, and it's brought in interest from outside sports club to promote sports. And I'm just putting in my 2 cents worth or two pennies worth here for my ward. Yes, because it would definitely, with improved facilities, really attract other outside clubs, outside of West End, outside of Bisley. Thank you.
Just, there appears to be, I don't know whether it's confusion. I'm not usually accused of not supporting projects when I'm making a grant of £85,000 available to it. And yet it feels this evening that that's exactly what's happening. We are proposing a significant amount of money be granted to West End Parish Council towards this project. We are not proposing to pick up the entire bill for the project for refurbishing an asset which belongs to what is in effect an external organisation to this council. So the proposal is that we make £85,000 available with the caveats that I suggested and that now the leader has suggested. We put on that resolution. Not that we don't fund anything. So I just want to make that clear. There is a significant amount of money being proposed to be handed over towards this project. It feels from the line of questioning that we're not doing it, but we are. Sorry.
You're not feeling any love, Councillor Ashby?
I'm not.
We love you, Councillor Ashby.
I'll put the 85k in my own bank.
Okay, so just a couple of clarifications. I think the normal rules of the scheme exist, don't they? Yeah, okay, thank you. Can I just check the normal rules of the scheme exist, which is the payment will be on receipt of invoices, there'll be recognition of Surrey Heath Borough Council's contribution or comms, marketing, plaques, opening ceremonies, blah, blah, blah. Is that correct, Councillor Ashby?
That is the way we do SIL grants to all organisations. That will be in the small print that the officers work up in the final agreement on it.
Right, I'm going to let 2 more contributions, then if you've got them, and then we're going to proceed in the interest of time. Councillor Dr. Kang, please.
Would the chair allow Councillor Graham Alloway to answer your previous question? Is that possible?
If Councillor Alloway, thank you. If Councillor Alloway keeps it short and sharp and doesn't make it a speech about some numbers that we may have spoken about before in this chamber, then I'd be delighted to hear from him. Thank you.
You've heard all that before, actually, so I will refrain from doing that. And plus, I don't want to excite Rob Bell if he's here. But anyway, no, it's just to clarify that if there is an increase in costs from the original indications from the architects and the quantity surveyors above the 360, i.e. 20, 30,000 maybe because of the time span and the increase of costs, labour, materials, national insurance, all that sort of stuff. Is it okay if we make a second application? We're not saying to you, you've got to fund it. We're just saying, as there's an unlimited cap on this pot now, with change of policy, can we apply for it again? Otherwise, we will have to go to Public Works Loan Board and effectively taxing the residents twice.
I think I've already answered the question, Councillor Alloway, in Councillor Garrett's question. Of course, any organisation under the revised rules can apply for a grant from SIL to fund projects. What I can't say today is whether a second application from West End Parish Council would make it to this debating chamber and whether it would be considered and whether it would be successful, given the amount of projects that are currently in the pipeline. My recommendation, as I've intimated in here, is that West End Parish Council value engineer the project to the original estimate where possible and potentially look at alternate funding sources if that's not the case. An alternate funding source may be another application to this body, but I can't tell you that that would be successful.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. Thank you, Councillor Alloway, for your contribution. I think the last one's over here.
Thank you, Leader. It's just a very brief request for some clarification, and perhaps as Councillor Alloway is at the microphone, at your discretion, he might be able to answer. We touched on inclusion and being inclusive as a provision. I just wondered if perhaps we could have a little outline, very briefly, of the current users of the pavilion.
Okay, yeah. There is a long list submitted to Nick. You can see every hirer from within West End, from the surrounding district, and there's a very wide range of users. And if there's any questions about inclusivity, if I can say that word right, please look at the plans, and if you have any specific concerns about the design or the plans, please address it to us, because we're more than happy to answer. But we have had good architects on this, trying to make it as compliant to all regulations and current policies.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so we're going to bring this to a conclusion. A couple of things I think we just need to regroup on. First of all, this is a brilliant project and it's a great facility you have, and I think everybody knows it's a great facility you have there with a number of assets around the green. So congratulations to you on having such a great facility, because not everywhere has that. I know there'd be places in the borough would very much welcome the same kind of quality of facilities. It's a great project, and we want to see projects like this come forward and be supported for the benefit of the residents. And I think, Councillor Alloway, you've made the point before. I think it was 400 houses, but you might want to correct me. Yeah, 400 houses have gone into West End over a number of years, and that does bring additional demand. So it's a good project. It's very much in line with the council's strategy, and thank you to Councillor Ashby for supporting pulling it together over a period of time with West End Parish Council. And I see other members of West End Parish Council here, so hello, Councillor Douche. So we've got the recommendations, the resolution as it stands, plus Councillor Ashby's supplementary. Did you manage to collect that before? You did. Okay, good. Plus just the caveat that we check that the facilities are going to be inclusive, which I take Councillor Alloway on his word, but we'll just put that in. Are we happy to resolve that as it stands?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you, and thank you to the contributors as well. Right, we move on to item 7, which is the report of the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee call-in consideration. I'm not too clear who's leading on this one, to be honest. It hasn't got a portfolio holder because it's a non-executive item. Would you like to lead on it, Ms. Boateng? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. What I have to say is very short. So, as everyone's aware, so this report details the outcome of the consideration of the call-in request related. Am I on? Yes.
Yep.
Related to an executive decision for the sale of Wood End. The decision was considered at call-in on the 12th of June by the Performance and Finance Committee, and after a long and detailed and thorough debate, the decision of the executive was confirmed. However, it was determined to refer it back to the executive with some informatives, which are detailed under the heading recommendation. So that's 2 and 3. In summary, the informative was that letters are written on behalf of the council by the executive. Thank you.
Okay, any questions on this one? Please, Councillor Rise.
Thank you, Leader. I will keep it brief. I was unable to attend the scrutiny committee. This is kind of the first chance I've had to speak on the call in a formal meeting. And I did just want to kind of re-raise a couple of points that I made in the original executive meeting, just with regards to some of the concerns that were raised by residents prior to the decision. Primarily, it was the potential use of Wood End Road after the sale is completed and if the car park is closed by the new owners. One of the primary concerns that they had was ensuring that the cars that would have gone to the Wood End Road car park go to the opening car park at St Barbara's. And so I just wanted to make these points in general. One of the options that was raised by residents was a potential of bringing in residents-only permit parking on Wood End Road. However, as I've discovered over recent hours and recent days and weeks, this comes with a number of conditions to implement. It would be at a cost to residents in order to get the permits, and also it's not something that's deliverable by this council. I have been in contact with our county council to raise this point with him, county councillor to raise this point with him, and I'm in having continued discussions with him. One of the other points that I did raise is something that could be done by Surrey Heath in order to prevent any extra parking on Wood End Road would be to have clear and big signage along Deepcut Bridge Road to direct people to the new car park that's going to be opening rather than at Wood End Road. And this would be, and I would hope this would be around Wood End Road car park, that vicinity as well, to ensure that people who may have gone there out of habit, that they would see that there is alternative provision. Because that's one of the primary concerns, is that people would drive up Deepcut Bridge Road, turn into Wood End Road, see that a car park is no longer there, and then park on that road rather than going to the actual free provision that's going to be provided in Deepcut. So I just wanted to make those points. I have discussed this with you, Leader, and with other members. And I would be supportive of additional language added into the informatives, which I think were very interesting. And I did watch the debate of the scrutiny committee. It was an interesting debate. It was a very good debate as well, and I think it really did get to the key points of why this council is selling parts of its property portfolio and its requirement, but ensuring that provision is provided for a village for car parking in a larger car park at St Barbara's as well. So I'll leave it there, but I just wanted to raise those points as I made that commitment to residents, and it was the points that I made in the original executive meeting as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rise. I'll come back in a second on some of the points you suggested, but before I forget, maybe I could thank Councillor Garrett for chairing that P&F call-in and for the review and debate. I can't remember the words exactly that Ms Boateng used, but it was a tough gig, I think is what she said. So thank you for that. It was pleasing to find no fault found from the executive's decision making, considering the due diligence and debate that was given by the executive officers and other members originally in this place. So, but we always are able to live and learn, and that's what the informatives have suggested we do. So, any other questions from other people on this one? Councillor Rowlands, did you have a question? No? Okay, good. Okay. Just really clarification for myself, or maybe suggestion. I wasn't clear who was going to write these letters, but I'd like to suggest that Councillor Ashbury maybe oversees it in my absence with the Chief Exec, if that's okay.
Yep.
So that we make some progress. I think one of them certainly fits a little bit into the planning area. And the other one, I know you love writing Surrey County Council about transport issues. Maybe Councillor Garrett will open up the door for you into Surrey Highways. Who knows? So that's that one. And just a point of clarity, it said under 3.2 that we're in the lead for drafting the car park management plan. I know what that alludes to, but the DIO is the responsible party for the conditions. So technically they are in the lead for it. We might just be supporting them on elements of it. So that is a clarification on my part, having been bored enough to read the conditions. So suggestion is, reflecting on what Councillor Rise said, is in, this is maybe for you, Ms Willis, to take note, I can send it to you afterwards if it's helpful, is for the resolution under point 2, after school transport duties, we add the words, including associated peak parking periods, comma, at and around Lakeside. So just to reflect the fact that there is some concerns from residents around that period of the day, specifically. And under item 3, after excessive commercial usage, we add a comma and say with substantially enhanced car parking signage on key access roads, which I think was the point that Councillor Rise is making, particularly adjacent to Wood End, that we direct people to the right place. Is that acceptable to the executive? Anyone want to chip in on that? No? Okay. Sorry, 1 second, we're just going to have consultation. So just for everybody else's benefit, Councillor Ashby was just checking that we can amend and or add to what's come back from P&F, and I think Ms. Boateng, the Chief Executive, yeah, we can. Okay, so those two little tweaks in the informatives are proposed. Are we happy to resolve as that stands?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think we're going to win any records for the speediest meeting this evening, just to let people know, but we're making good progress. Transformation programme. Ms Kipping is kind enough to introduce this one on my behalf, seeing as her team does all the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This executive will be well aware of the financial context against which the transformation programme was started, with a savings target of £3.14 million. The programme was split into a number of work streams, including property, discretionary services, organisational design, as well as general budget review. This report provides progress so far against those savings and an update on projects, including risks. The report has been to the Scrutiny Committee, and thank you to Councillor Garrett for chairing a very robust discussion in that, and the comments included from P&F are in the report. The programme has had an impact on residents and staff. The council has tried to keep it to an absolute minimum, but it has been a really difficult time, and some projects have been more impacted, particularly on staff than others. There have been, and these impacts are also included in the paper. As a result of that, we are reviewing our people strategy and bringing that to the Employment Committee, and we are focusing on wellbeing, retention and morale. The recent staff survey has provided us with a good base from which to work, but this is something we can never take for granted. The executive has been asked to note and endorse the progress so far. No decision is actually required, but your feedback is very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Kipping. Maybe I could just start, when I find my notes will help, just 1 second. Problem with going digital, it takes longer to get to the right page. Yeah, maybe we could just start by thanking everybody involved in preparing this report. But I think it's much wider than this report. It's this whole programme that's had to be run, which has been quite substantial. I think probably one of the biggest in-depth analysis that probably this council has done in terms of what it's spending its money on and what it's prioritising. So I think we should call out a few people in addition to yourself, Ms Kipping, before we get into any questions, and as well as the Chief Executive on my left-hand side here. But I think Ms Henderson-Young has been instrumental in pulling all of this together and much appreciated, and Ms Bainbridge as well, because it's been a really well-run project for a very tricky topic. So I think all the executive appreciates all the staff's commitment as well to supporting flushing out these cost-saving opportunities whilst also protecting the key services. So really big thank you to everyone involved. Obviously I called out some names, there are others we know, but yeah, just wanted to particularly thank the staff for their support through this difficult period and making sure we face into the challenges that we have. And a thank you to the P&F team as well for reviewing it and their feedback. So without further ado, maybe I could just open up for further questions or anything anybody wants to add. Please, Councillor Rowlands.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this is a puzzle of how originally 2.6 million seems to have morphed into 8 million. Perhaps we probably have been told this in the past, but it's interesting to know, on one hand, why somebody got the original figure so wrong, and the basis for the secondary figure that was moved up to 8 million. Obviously, we're doing this in the background that the government have indicated that it's prepared to meet Woking shortfall. As a corollary of that, have we looked at the basis? I know the commissioners have been to Woking, but I think it might be interesting to find out what the commissioners appear to be allowing Woking to do, so we don't find ourselves cutting things here that the commissioners allowed to happen in Woking. I mean, what we should be demanding is an equality as far if we are to be linked in, unfortunately, with Woking, an equality in how the commissioners are proposing to proceed. And obviously, the plea that was made previously, that is there anything indicating that the commissioners should actually move against the council? And are all of the procedures that are being suggested definitely required by any action by the commissioners?
Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. I'll take the first bit around the money side, as I'm covering finance today. I don't know, Mr. Stevens, do you want to comment on the commissioners? Because you probably have more dealings with Richard Carr and the gang than I do, and better connections into the Chief Exec, etc.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. You are correct. We do have regular dealings with the commissioners at Woking and the senior management team there, largely around discussions around local government reorganisation and how that works, and obviously in relation to Woking stranded debt and how that might be resolved as part of local government reorganisation, and extended conversations with the Treasury and MHCLG. We aren't in the same situation as Woking is the first thing that I would say, and we certainly would not want the commissioners to come into Surrey Heath and dictate how we managed our services, how we managed our finances, and the way or the quantum of services that we delivered. I think that would be absolutely the wrong decision, and we have fought hard through this transformation programme to make sure that doesn't happen. The reason that we undertook the transformation programme at pace and sought to find such a significant figure for a small borough was to ensure that we weren't at the hands of commissioners, because that would be manifestly the wrong choice for us. We wanted to be masters of our own destiny, and through, as the leader said, the hard work of a huge quantum of officers across the entire council with the input of executive and other councillors, I think that this is an absolute success. In terms of learnings from Woking, yes, of course, we track what is happening there in terms of their expenditure and the way that they are redesigning their services. But the important thing to note in relation to Woking is they are not managing their finances effectively, even now under the guise of commissioners, where there is still the need for government support. Their books are not balanced, and ultimately they will not be at any point in the near future. I hope that answers part of your question, Councillor Rowlands.
I'll take the first part. So, and I'll do this from memory. I'm happy to dig out the numbers and share them in due course. The data that this council was presented with in officers' reports was not, at the time of the budget, was not fully transparent to the members. So whether it was yourselves or us as the executive, the numbers we were being told in terms of the interest payments and the implications of that were not the true figures. They had also not been properly calculated for about 7 years. We had been underpaying, under-declaring our interest payments for seven years. And what that meant is when because it had been set at a fixed rate of 2.1 million, and when interest rates had changed, that had not been corrected for multiple years. So as the interest rates increased, our debt payments that we actually had to pay were substantially in increase of what was in the files that the officers had in their systems and wasn't transparent to the members. So, as I think we're all aware, we didn't have accounts for 4 years, so the reconciliation of the true state of affairs didn't happen until we put in place the resources required. I think in November 2023, the finance stabilisation paper came to this table, and we invested in the finance team. So we were then able to recruit the necessary resource, and I think one of the new team members in the room today, and obviously Mrs. Radford's on holiday as well, and others as well. We were able to put the proper resources in place to address the gaps in the finance processes, which then uncovered the fact that the underlying finances systems were not budgeting the correct numbers. And when the accounts were done, we then had the moment of reckoning where our reserves collapsed because of the cumulative impact of the underpayments, of the under-accounting. So funny money effectively, but the real money had been paid to the people we owed the interest, but the actual accounts had not kept up to date with it. That moment of truth then obviously happened September the 24th, my daughter's birthday last year. So that was the moment at which the full visibility then started entering into this chamber as to the situation. And we have then been able to recognise the fact that the true number which should have been declared to members was of the order of 8 million for interest and MRP payments per year. And whilst we see the interest rates softening slightly, they're not actually reducing at the rate I think that we had hoped for. or people had anticipated due to some macroeconomic impacts. So we continue to be having to face into that over the years ahead. So the reserves that we have, which we now understand the true number because the accounts have caught up, and we've obviously started doing external auditing, which again didn't happen on for the 4 previous years, are getting us to the situation where we've had to face into these things. So that's the context for where we're at. And you're right, Councillor Rowland, we have said it before. We're very happy to say it again because it happened on a previous watch, and it started when people went to the casino with residents' money and bought properties that they didn't know how to manage. So very happy to repeat it, but equally this particular report is about celebrating the efforts of the team that is in place that has inherited this problem, whether it's ourselves or the officers, because many of the officers have changed out through the period as well, respecting the work that's been done to face into that, to protect the core services, and make sure we can do the very best we can with every pound we get from the council taxpayer. So thank you for your question. I've been advised at Councillor Claret.
Thank you, Chair. My questions are fairly simple, hopefully. I think this paper is really brilliant. I like all the savings and seeing them all listed. On page 28, we've got a list of service delivery reviews. And just a couple of things that I thought about. So we're removing the annual budget provision for borough elections. So does that mean, what will happen if we have to have a borough election? Okay, that's my number 1 question. Number 2 is about the reduction in the regeneration budget. What exactly that 98,000 was for. And the final question, which I'm sure is one for Morgan, was about the locking and unlocking of the parks. I was just wondering how that was going to save money, because you've obviously got to unlock them and lock them still. So I just wondered how that was doing. So those are my 3 questions. Thank you.
I think we'll let Councillor Rise take the last one first, which will give the officers to think a little bit on the other 2 points. Thank you.
So essentially, Ms McCubbin's not here, who would be able to provide a much more technical and detailed answer. However, the savings that we would be able to, by not locking the parks, so by leaving parks open to vehicular access, there would be savings made, because essentially what happens to lock and unlock is that a member of staff, which is as part of the Glendale contract, goes around all of the parks, locks and unlocks them. So essentially we're making the saving by not requiring that service.
Going to basically be open all the time?
Yes.
So there was one about the unwinding of the borough elections provision. Who wants to take that one? Thank you for your patience there. So it's what we all, I think, thought it was, which is historically we've taken a quarter on the basis it would then build up to an election, yeah? Because we know we're not going to have an election, we don't need to take the quarter. But you're right, if for whatever reason the government does a screaming U-turn, then we will have a problem. But then we'll have a bigger problem because we'll be going to the commissioners, as Councillor Rowland has already highlighted, yeah?
I was thinking more perhaps, if, say, somebody left to Hong Kong again or other things.
But that's a fairly marginal cost, Councillor Claret. But yes, you're right, there would be, but let's hope nobody else is going to. Well, they're very welcome to if the great opportunity arises for them, but we wouldn't want to lose anybody. And there was, Councillor, Mr. Breeden, please.
Yes, the reduction to the regeneration budget, that's a combination of things. So it's looking at fewer new feasibility projects and doing that work in-house wherever we can. We've been able to capitalise some revenue costs as well and contain that within the capital budgets. and then it is using one public estate money which we've been able to use on the feasibility study of this building.
Councillor Garrett, apparently you were next.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask a question about elections as well, but I won't now, except that that doesn't answer the question about by-elections, because obviously we have a pending by-election, so I'm guessing that will have to be adjusted within these figures. So off the back of one of Councillor Glower's question, no? Okay, cool. Glower's question, sorry, I almost said Garrett, didn't I? If we're leaving them open, does that mean there's more chance of vandalism? Question. I have another question. And a very simple one again. Page 23 mentions in unauthorised encampments. Have we had any since April? So have we had any incurred costs? And I will take this opportunity to thank the officers for generating the reports, which obviously they kindly brought to PNF. I always try and remember then, but I will mention off the back of your comments as well. Thank you.
Just on the parks question, there's always a risk, but there's a risk of someone climbing over the fence and vandalising it that way. Based on the advice that we've had from the team, we don't view it to be a very serious risk. However, just because something may have stopped doesn't mean it couldn't be reviewed as a later. If for example, if we started to see massive amounts of antisocial behaviour, I would be asking for a review because there's a clear cost benefit, and so it's about the cost benefit. Based on the kind of advice that we received with regards to the savings, it wasn't deemed to be a significant enough risk to not consider doing it.
And just for the public's benefit, by-elections such as the county by-election due to the sad death of Councillor David Lewis, the costs for that go to the county.
And there was just a question on unauthorised encampments as well. And I don't believe this, I'm not sure, but there haven't been.
And I think going back to that one, I think we were having that service, but in reality, because we'd actually taken proper protective measures of our land, we weren't using it for our land, we were getting dragged into other people's problems, which are technically their problems, not the council's. Councillor Rowland.
Would it be possible to have some sort of idea, looking at this list from 28 to 31, of whether corresponding cuts in Woking's budget are being carried out? If we're going to go into a relationship with Woking, it would seem very unfair that we're cutting some of this stuff and Woking would be allowed to carry on as it had done previously. So it seems to me we're in a sort of rather hazy situation that we're carrying out a whole series of cuts, and Woking may go into a combination with ourselves in a relatively short period of time, and not having been required to carry out anything in many ways as draconian as some of the cuts that are being postulated here.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. So first of all, I don't accept the challenge that these are draconian. I think these are well thought through, prudent measures to reduce our costs. I think I think it's a real credit to the officers that they've come up with these in a way that's sensitive to the underlying needs of our residents for key services. The second thing is, and I'm sorry I don't have the data in my head tonight, is I think Woking, when it did get hit with the original commissioners coming in, then there were massive cuts within their budget, and I think that's maybe the bit that you're missing. But thirdly, we're not responsible for doing a benchmarking exercise with Woking tonight. We are responsible for running this council in the best way we can, in the best interests of our residents, with the money that we have available. That's a responsibility on me, the same as it is on you, to be honest, Councillor Rowland. And therefore I look to all of you as colleagues to support us in that, and hence the good review work that was done by the PNF committee to try and make sure that these proposals are prudent and appropriate and end up with the key services being protected for our residents. Councillor Rise, please.
I do just want to add on to that point as well, is that it's my understanding that Woking Borough Council continues to borrow vast millions every year just to fill the gap that they have. We're in a completely different position to Woking. And I'd also point out that while the government may have signalled that they may be willing to help Woking in somehow, they've not set out how much, what that's going to look like, and I don't think that they are going to be very interested in helping any other council at all. So I'll make that point. I do just kind of, as a positive outcome of the transformation, I do kind of just with some of my own service areas, as well as paying tribute to the officers that have done this report, but also to the theatre team and the heritage service who have done a significant and, in my opinion, Herculean amount of work to be able to maintain their services by finding new forms of income, which I'm sure many services are doing as well. But it's because of the decisions that we've been taken as an executive and as officers, which has meant that we've been able to protect services like Meals at Home, continuing to fund citizens' advice, which was at risk, at threat in Woking. So while it may be uncomfortable at times to make decisions which sees reductions in services, it's been essential to be able to provide the vital services, in my opinion, and I've made this point many, many times, that our residents depend on. Yes, it may be uncomfortable to sell a car park in the ward that I represent, but I would rather see vulnerable older people have hot meals rather than stick my head in the sand and not address the problem. So I just wanted to make that point. The decisions are never easy, but if you don't make difficult decisions, you end up running out of money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. I think Councillor Ashby, you want to come in?
I just wanted to come in just to pick up on something that Councillor Rowland said. I would like to remind you that since the commissioners have gone into Woking, council tax in Woking has risen 10% a year. I know because my son lives in Woking and pays the council tax. I think it would be irresponsible of us as an executive and a council to just accept that is going to happen to the residents of Surrey Heath. I believe it is responsible and prudent and incumbent upon us as the executive and the wider council to do everything we can to avoid being in the situation that Woking finds itself in, because we cannot just keep taxing residents to get us out of a position where poor decisions have been made in the past.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll try and move on if that's okay with everybody. Just one point I had, if I can find it, hang on 1 second. Oh yeah, I know what it was. The items, I think it's 5 items where we're still slightly adrift from plan, despite the excellent work that's been done, of which I think the officers know that the community services, as Councillor Rise has just mentioned, is particularly close to the Executive's heart, and I know other members' hearts as well. Can I just ask that we get an update on the progress of that at Executive briefing, and then if there's anything else that we need to bring back to the wider group, it'll pop up in the quarterly or 6-monthly tracking reports that we're going to have anyway. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, thank you, Lydia. Just to say that yes, there are a set of slides that are prepared for executive briefing that outline the ongoing pieces of work and where we currently are with those, so we can update you next week.
Thank you. Because one of the biggest ones is community services, where we're at some risk, so we need to keep an eye on that. But it's also very important to the residents, that one. Okay, so without further ado, and again, thanks to all involved for a bit of a monster, but we've had it in small parts and we've got there. Are we happy with the resolution as it stands?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to item number 9, which is the Main Square Car Park, Camberley, proposed letting. Can I just remind members that both this one and the next one, I think, might have exempt items in them. If we could try and navigate our way around going into exempt, I think it is in the best interest of the residents. In fact, I think Councillor Garrett made that point in the last few days. So if we could try and do that, that would be great. But if we do need to do it, we'll do it. But if you can speak in code so we don't need to do it, that's also much appreciated. And thank you, Ms. Kipping. Okay, so if you're going to introduce, yeah, please introduce us.
These are bad tonight, aren't they? This paper concerns the letting of the top 2 floors of the main square multi-storey car park in Camberley, which are empty for the vast majority of the time. As members will be aware, this council needs to generate additional revenue and capital receipts to avoid Section 141 notice and avoid commissioners being appointed, which I think has been touched on this evening, would mean some very, very difficult decisions being made without any input from the elected members. One of the key strategies of the council on which we were elected was to make property work and also to secure our finances. The parking team have worked hard to maximise income from the car park, whilst at the same time recognising its importance in attracting visitors to the town centre. In 2024, we invested in a new payment machines, CCTV and customer information screens, which has provided a better user experience. The car parking tariff was increased in April 2024, having not been reviewed for 2 years. This has increased revenue and has not had any notable impact on parking numbers. The council was approached by the owner of the Camberley Station site looking to provide off-site car parking for residents of its proposed development. We know that car parking provision spaces are very expensive as they consume land, and if they're in the open air, or involve expensive construction costs if they are not. We also know that there are challenges to the viability of apartment developments due to increased construction costs, so we were not surprised to receive the inquiry. Officers have negotiated at length to achieve the best outcome from the proposed letting. The details of the letting and its financial impact are at annexes 1 and 3, respectively, in this paper. As the leader pointed out, it would be nice if we could keep this in the public domain and not have to go into exempt on the numbers. I've lost where I am now, guys. Bear with me just 1 second. I am happy to share in the public domain, however, that the annual revenue that would be lost to the proposed tenant took up the occupation of all 210 spaces would be in the region of £7,500. That loss of revenue is factored into the additional value to the council doing this deal, which is shown as at the net present value figure in Appendix 3. The financial argument is, as it needs to be, compelling. With the officers, I've also considered the impact on car users. As the paper sets out at paragraph 1.1.2, even if the proposed tenant took up all of the spaces contemplated in the agreement, the car park would reach capacity for a total of 102 hours across 29 days of the year. The Knoll Road car park has plenty of capacity to absorb that displacement. I know it's not as convenient and the ramps are tighter and the cars have got bigger, but it's still very much usable and not untypical of a town centre car park. We will be looking at the ramps as part of the current car park plan. It is 355 metres from the main square lift core, and the number of disabled bays in the main square car park will remain unchanged by these proposals. It's also worth pointing out that the atrium car park is also rarely full. Significant oversupply of multi-storey car parking is a reflection in the changing nature of town centres like Camberley, which once had major comparison shopping centre, but for structural reasons, including growth of online shopping and out-of-town shopping, we now need to fulfil a different role in providing community and convenience shopping with an attractive evening economy. The vision for the town centre embraces this reality. The vision also provides for new housing to give people a place to live and satisfy the housing allocation that the borough is given by central government, and in turn to alleviate pressure on the Greenbelt. These new residents will provide additional vibrancy and trade for town centre businesses. In summary, it is a balance of all those factors and the long-term vision for Camberley, the inconvenience for some drivers for a limited number of hours of the year, and the compelling financial case that the executive need to consider. The transaction is recommended for approval, and I'd just like to give it some context, as I'm sure I'll get a question on it, but it works out at 0.05% of main square vehicles that would be displaced from the main square car park over the course of a year. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Can I just remind members as well, especially those that are on planning or might be on planning, that you need to just be careful here in terms of predetermination. So just have a think about your points and your language that you use, which I think is mentioned in the paper as well. Okay, questions, points. Councillor Cope, please.
So, firstly, I'm not opposed to the principle of letting out car parking spaces. I think it's quite a good way of generating revenue. My slight concern here is we're proposing to let 210 spaces. Now, the allocation of the local plan for the Camberley station site is 150, presumably partly because of the parking constraints. Are we opening ourselves up here to the developer saying, well, actually, now I've got 210 spaces of car parking, I can apply for something bigger? And are we opening ourselves up to a higher rise project on this site than may have otherwise been envisaged? I accept that I'm asking quite a sort of conversation starter question, if you like, but I want to be sure that the executive has considered that element as well as the sort of financial and parking generation.
Just if I can, at a high level, answer some of the questions. Depending upon the tenure or the size of each dwelling, whether it be 1, 2, 3 bedroom, etc., gives a different number of allocation in terms of number of parking spaces per dwelling. So part of it is a calculation based upon that. My understanding, and I will have to go back and check, is that as part of the local plan changes since that were delegated to myself and the head of planning since it went to full council, this site has actually gone to 200, not 150. I will need to double check that, but that was on one of the things that I saw going into following representations from the public. So partly the initial calculation was based upon the size of dwellings, but it's also not 150 is my current understanding.
Maybe I could just check my understanding then as well, that with the potential proposed development, there would still be some car parking on that site that's incremental to this 210 number. Is that not correct?
My understanding, and again, it all depends, this is heavily caveated, of course, is that the existing parking provision on that site would remain.
So therefore, there's some kind of ratio there that
Exactly.
needs to be calculated out when they come forward in due course. But I think the key point, Councillor Cope, is when and if they come forward, because they're two separate decisions, they'll have to be fully compliant with the policy that's in place for the number of units and number of spaces, and I believe also promoting active travel as well. And they can potentially do things like car clubs, etc., to reduce that ratio down further, I think, from memory. Thank you, Councillor Cope. Say again? Councillor Garrett, did you have your hand up? Thank you.
Thank you. So I am on planning, so I have to be careful. And actually, I think it's key. This is a decision about parking. This is not a decision about planning. And obviously, there will be an application that will come through in the future. I'm not against this in principle either. I know it's in the local plan, and we know we need housing. And because of the changes that have happened, we need housing as quickly as possible. So I have no problems with that. I think the issue, actually, I think it's an issue with the paper, and I'm sure I've asked this question, and I'm sure you'll be able to clarify it. These 210 spaces aren't all in one tranche, either, from what I can remember. And I know that some of it's in part, it's in heads of terms, and so I don't know how much you can give, but I think it's key because I know there's a feeling out within social media that this is all going to happen all in one go. We discussed this because I'm on the property working group as well. We did discuss this at length, and that was one of the concerns. We've got these parking spaces that can be used up, etc., etc. It's not going to all be in one go. I think that's key, and it won't be immediately. And actually, there's no building there yet either. So, so the issues I have are around that, and I know you won't be able to answer this one, and it might fall into Lisa Finn and Cook's side. And it's not something that we, as the council, can think about because of planning, but there are a number of charities that are in that building. I think there's 13 from what I can remember. And then whilst I appreciate this is a concern about parking, I think it's something I need to voice in the chamber that some of those charities have moved out of the Ian Goodchild Centre because we're looking to put other things in there. So we are going to have 13 charities that we are going to have to find. I appreciate that that's a completely different thing about planning, but I think it's valid that we need to mention that because we are going to have to find somewhere for these 13 charities that actually in a lot of cases are really relevant to Surrey Heath, etc. So it's just something to throw in there, maybe something else for later on down the line. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Garrett. Just to answer your question with regards to tranches, as pointed out in one of the annexes, you're right, it will be phased. So our residents won't actually see a big gate going up, preventing them from accessing areas of the car park. It will be done in blocks of, blocks of spaces to begin with, and then at the end of the building and everything, when everything's handed over and completed, there'll be a closed-off area. Yeah.
Clarification point as also, if we agree this tonight, that doesn't mean that 200 spaces or any of that will suddenly disappear. It's going to happen once the planning application comes through, yes?
Yeah, you're not going to see a big gate going up tomorrow, stopping people using 2 levels of the car park. It's going to take a long time to phase it through, and obviously depending on the developer's build.
So I think it's worth highlighting, seeing this come up, highlight to members section 3.1, which highlights that it assumes that the first phase will be delivered in the financial year commencing 2029, the second phase in 2033, and the third and final phase in 2037. So that gives an indication as to how measured the changes would be. No, I don't think it is an exempt. 3.1 is not an exempt, it's in the public report. 3.1. 3.1 of the report. Oh, the 3.1 of the report. Propose an alternative options. It doesn't mention quantities, sorry. Yeah, it doesn't mention quantities, but it mentions the date. So this is the point, because it's in tranches of up to, the total number is 270. It could be in tranches, it could be bigger or smaller tranches. Oddly enough, I asked Mr. Breeden to just check the economics on this. If they take smaller tranches, it's actually more beneficial to the council, but that's we could do with the homes within, and we could do with the activity within the town centre. So it is potentially an attractive development, along with obviously the changes at the other end of the on London Road with the demolition that's ongoing. Should both ends be developed in due course, it's potentially attractive for the buzz of the town centre. Okay, Councillor Cloak, please.
Just a quick one. At 2.4, it says the proposed letting will facilitate delivery of homes on the station site and improvements to the station itself. Could you explain how it will facilitate improvements to the station, please?
See the train man, is it?
I just, again, at a very top level from the meeting that the leader alluded to that he and I had with the owner of the site some 18 months ago. Part of the proposal he wishes to bring forward is a redevelopment of the station concourse as part of the proposal.
And that's, I think that's part of his the developers getting on board Network Rail to some of the interim disruption as well. So I think there are other opportunities, right? Thank you, Councillor Garrett, for highlighting the impact on the people in those buildings. Whilst I think technically they're not our leases, we'd obviously be wanting to work through Mr. Breeden's group to see if we can repop them into units within the town centre, and maybe we end up with some kind of charity hub or something. I don't know, but that's one for it. As you can see, the dates are quite far out. A question maybe from me for Mr. Breeden. Do we have any indication at all, should planning permission be achieved, when they would likely to commence, given the first phase says it's going to be completed in 2029? Does that imply 2027 start? What should we infer from that?
Yes, we don't have any programme from them at this stage, but typically it's probably 2.5 years construction period, sort of 6 months of demolition and then a 2-year build.
Thank you. I thought your expertise there would be better than mine. Thank you. Councillor Rise, please.
It's kind of following on from that question. With this decision, if we were to agree to the decision today, I don't know if officers have received any indication from a potential developer of would they bring forward an application prior to the local plan being assessed, examined, and then passed by this full council? There's one. It's almost could they could bring it sooner and start sooner. I don't know if Councillor Ashby's. I probably know the answer is he has absolutely no idea, but I'm wondering if we could check if officers have had any indication from a potential applicant.
Talk amongst yourselves for a second.
Yeah, I think the simple answer is we have absolutely no idea.
On this specific
on this particular point, you've picked something that I think is something that one would need a very effective crystal ball to answer.
I know there's certain people out there that do clipping stuff. I've seen them completely change what I think Councillor McIntyre actually said and what was reported on social media were two completely different things following the intervention of modern technology. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Rice, for that. Do we have any indication, I don't even know who's going to answer this question, if at any point all the car parks are full, including the atrium at this point in time? I think... Right, we don't believe they are. Okay. If we take this capacity out, whether any of the car parks, the other car parks are full, the atrium is full as well.
I can answer the question based upon the analysis done by Mr. Burns, that if you just look at Main Square and Knoll Road, if the capacity that, on the 56 days of the year, if that capacity that could not be accommodated in Main Square went to Knoll Road, we could accommodate the whole thing and still have a number of spaces spare. And one of the projects that is being considered is signposting people to the car park and the level where the spaces are. That is one of the things that is being looked at the moment.
Oh, so that's the green and red lights thing.
Yeah, but that's not related to this. That is something that we're looking at for car parks anyway. Right. That would be a benefit in this. But even on those days where Main Square would be over capacity, we could accommodate it all at Knoll Road without even needing any space in the atrium.
Councillor Garrett, please.
I wasn't going to ask another question, but it's come to me while you were talking about that, and it comes off the back of the fact that, as we all know from planning, when you're looking at traffic, you never look at the other applications that are going through. So based on that, and based on that questioning there, I'm assuming that if something else like this came up from another developer looking at other spaces in other car parks we would not consider it. But that doesn't mean someone like the Atrium couldn't consider it for their parking. There's nothing we can do about it, but just thinking out aloud, that could we suddenly find ourselves in a difficult position?
I think we will need to look more widely as some of these big proposals come forward as to what the parking provision could be, and there could still be opportunities for us. So, and it may well be that, so let's let that one lie for now, because we have to do it one decision at one decision. I think it's fair to say that in the 2024 parking strategy, we acknowledged that Knoll Road probably needed some work after Main Square. It's not an ideal car park. I think we all respect that. Oh, that's a £10 fine for the Mayor's Fund, isn't it? Can somebody minute that, please, Miss Willis? I'm sure Councillor Ashby would be happy to pass it on. what I was going to say was that I think we acknowledge the fact that it's in need of looking at because of chronic lack of investment and infrastructure maintenance in the past, and it's just a bit awkward for some of the larger cars these days. So I don't think it's our decision tonight is too linked to that, but it is a piece of work that will need to progress. Is that right, Councillor Ashby?
Yeah, there is a piece of work ongoing that Mr. Burns is looking at on what came out of the Stripe report that led to the 2024 parking strategy that needs to be done in Knoll Road. We are spending money on just keeping it maintained at the moment, and the big issues that we have over the coming few years across both the multi-stories is lift replacements. They do need doing, they are going to be expensive, but there is a detailed scope of work currently being developed for the Knoll Road car park to bring that long before this proposal would come into effect.
And that would also look at this larger cars turn radius type issue, which I think is something that we pick up as a concern, yeah? Okay. Okay, good. Listen, in the interest of time, I think we'll move things on. I think we've done this one. Everybody okay with that? I'm not seeing. Okay. So the resolution is as it stands, that it be delegated to the head of property and economic development consultation portfolio for property and economic development and the head of finance to enter into a lease substantially on the terms set out in Annex 1, which is restricted, as we know. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay. I think we're on the last item, which I know you've all been waiting for, hybrid mail. So I think this paper pretty much speaks for itself. I'm subbing in for Councillor McIntyre on this one. So I think it pretty much speaks for itself. It's about getting a more efficient way of, thank you, Mr. Breeden. It's getting more, come back and see us again, Councillor Deutsch, anytime soon, yeah? Oh, you're not listening to me. Most people don't. So, yeah, it's about just getting more efficient and effective in how we go about our mail activities. I'd just like to thank the team for their work on this, Ms Radford for bringing this proposal forward, and I see Ms Austin as well, so I can eye test this, Ms Austin as well, who I think needs some credit and a call out for the work that she's doing in procurement in pulling this together. So thank you to all involved for your work here. Is there any questions on this one? I knew this would be a thriller, this one. Right. Okay. Just because the officers have been here for so long and everything else waiting for this, I'll ask a question. So what will remain outside of the contract and what is the timeline for them to come within it, please? Stunned silence. Who wants to have a go at that one?
Who would you?
I know Democratic Services is staying outside for a while. Oh, Ms Austin, please. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for the comments on the work involved. It's been quite an interesting one. Outside of...
We just lost you there.
Have you?
Yes, you just went outside and you can come back. You said outside.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Yep.
Yep. Outside scope at the moment are planning and democratic services, but we are hoping to bring them on board for maybe not the election software, but some of democratic services work. We're hoping to bring them on board as well because the scope of the contract can accommodate newcomers to it. Yeah, so there aren't many that are out of scope. Even the things that are going through a platform called Uniform, we even have a sort of positive vibes from ICT that they could potentially come on board with this contract as well. So we are very positive and looking forward to getting the contract underway and getting them started on it.
Thank you. What about the theatre? Is that
theatre? theatre was out of scope because they particularly wanted to carry on printing their tickets, because a lot of the public do like to receive a ticket and give tickets as gifts. So it was decided to keep those out of scope. But I do have it in mind that we could speak to the new provider and see what the potential is for them to print the tickets for us in the same kind of format. So it's not completely out of scope. The new provider also can print leaflets. We got pricing for leaflets and pamphlets and things. So it's not categoric that theatre tickets won't be able to be printed, but at the moment they did choose to stay out of scope so that they could carry on printing tickets for the public who still want them.
Okay, thank you, Ms Austin. Yeah,
thank you.
Obviously, we get the more savings we get, the better, which is probably from more people coming on board. But we'll leave that with the chief exec to keep rallying the troops on that. Okay, so if there's no other questions, no, are we? You okay there, Councillor Rice? Yeah. If there's no more questions, are we happy with the recommendation as it stands?
Yeah,
agreed. Agreed. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. It's been a bit of a sticky night tonight, so hopefully we'll all be happy to get outside, I think, get a bit of fresh air. So thank you very much for your attention and all the questions, and officers for your work. Take care.